Welcome, everybody. We're back with a live episode of Renew Your Finance. So we're going to do a quick recap and welcome everybody back after a quick 2-week layoff. Got a little vacation time in there. So now we're back to business, and we missed everybody. So we're going to do a quick recap of what we talked about. I guess it's been 3 weeks now since the last time we met. I almost forgot what we talked about.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah. No. We talked about ways to cut costs to help fight the inflation, and some cost-cutting measures that we went over.
Absolutely. So as you all remember, you should have been tuned in. The federal chairman at the time, our federal chairman of the United States, which is Chairman Powell, has been discussing with the country how they've been increasing the inflationary measures within our country to try to all this inflationary pressure that we have. And we played a couple of videos that give us some details about what is inflation, how do the Fed try to control that inflation. This is not the first time our country has gone through inflation. We have had several periods within our economic country history where we have battled this subject one time or another. It's just at this particular time, we're at the highest level of inflation in the last 40 years, which is astronomical. And some of the things that is affecting us here that you and I can think about or see on a day-to-day basis is our gas. Inflation affects our gas. It affects our things that we commonly get in our grocery stores, or some of those consumer bought products that we buy on a regular basis, whether it be your detergents or any of those type of things that you use commonly within your household. So we wanted to understand how we can do certain things in our own house to combat inflation. So that way, once we as a country get inflation under control, it will be nothing to us at that particular time, because we've already implemented certain strategies in regards to how to keep those inflationary measures from affecting our pocketbooks, i.e. our four walls, those things that we have in our house. So this week, we're switching gears after a 2 weeks hiatus. We're wanting to discuss that. Understandably, we're in a certain market. I've been discussing with Adrian about this for the last couple of weeks, and I predominantly see it in myself as a program manager for the company that I work for, is that we're definitely in an employees market right now. And what I mean by employees market is that there is a deficit with a certain quality of employee right now. We are still having some problems getting people to come back to work, especially in our hospitality industry, like our hotels or restaurants, things of that nature. Airlines, if you haven't felt the effects about that, just hold on, wait till Thanksgiving and Christmas come, and you'll see that they don't have enough stewardess or enough pilots to fly some of these planes, and that's where some of your delays start coming in, like we did last year. And so think about it. If we're in an employees market, that means we as the employee have the opportunity to shift the paradigm while we can, because it's not going to stay this way forever. But if you're seeking to get ahead, as the title states, in your finances, you may be in the market or may be in the environment right now for a career change. So that's what we're going to discuss tonight, talking about those things that you may have thought about doing, but you haven't done, whether it be a career change to a whole different career, and you're going to have a strategy for that, or maybe a lateral move in the career that you're currently in, and you're just, the way you are increasing your income in that lateral move is by acquiring certain certifications and certain licenses or certain credentials to make yourself marketable in the current career that you're commonly in, because people are doing it, everybody. They're looking at it now and they say, hey, I don't have to stay in this 7 to 5 or this 9 to 5 job and not go anywhere. We're in a society now that you can make a shift, but to make that shift, you got to have a plan. And those are some of the things that Adrian and I have been talking over the weeks, and we want to hear from you also, those who choose to join us tonight. So what are your thoughts on that, Adrian, in regards to what we've been discussing over the last couple of weeks?
Right. So it's all about building value as your own personal brand. We talk about side hustles. We talked about entrepreneurship, but we all have a 9-to-5 job. Most of us have 9-to-5 jobs. So how do we build value in that 9-to-5 job to where we are not getting the minimum when it's time for raises? You know, how do we build value for looking at where we want to go at in our career in other parts of that job that we're in? So we might work in a company like me, for instance. I started out at the help desk, but my goal was to transition into cybersecurity. So I started, inquiring about the group with cybersecurity and started asking them questions about cybersecurity. So what we want to talk about tonight is, figure out what it is that you want to do, and we want to try to help you increase your value in your current workplace. Also gain skill sets that you may be able to take that, what you learn in your workplace, and transition into your own side hustle or your own independent business. We got to stop limiting ourselves to how we think and that we're stuck in this 9-to-5. If you enjoy what you're doing, you can learn skill sets in that job and take it outside of that employer. And the perfect example of that, and which I'm going to have DeShonda talk about it from her standpoint, is DeShonda went to school as a social worker. And DeShonda, can you come on and kind of explain to us what you did with your career as a social worker and how you transitioned that into becoming an independent contractor? Now you work for yourself.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So for me, I started working at social services, and I had my master's in social work. It was doing well there, but wasn't really, no upward mobility at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I was getting, valuable skills and experience. And then the city came up with a program where we could get free supervision towards a license. And it was a group of people that qualified for that. And so I was one of them. And for 2 years, I worked with this person to get my supervision. And that was free, where usually you have to pay someone $50, $70, sometimes $100, depending on their rate, to get this training and supervision. So once I got that, then I was able to get a promotion. And then someone else, in working through that promotion, I met someone else who worked in a different department. So I was able to get a promotion into a different department altogether. And then it kind of just snowballed from there, working with a private agency and another private agency. And now I've realized that everyone needs a licensed clinical social worker.
So DeShonda, how do
yes.
you able to go from one department to another? Because that's like a lateral movement within the same career field, right? That you went from that department to another department. How is it that you were able to get into another department and get promoted in that department? I'm interested in knowing that.
So I was able to, I definitely had to talk to my supervisor in that department, in my first department, at social services, in order for me to go into that other department.
Okay.
And that was, they were happy to do that because they knew that once people got their license, they were going to be moving.
Okay. Okay.
We did have to, verbally say that we would stay, but I did stay within the city. I just didn't stay in that department.
Okay. Okay.
So they knew that once, we had that title and that experience, that we would be looking for something else. and
Okay.
others would be looking for us.
Oh,
So
okay.
definitely in the private sector, it is such a great need because some agencies cannot work without a licensed clinical social worker. They can have every other position filled, but if you do not have a licensed clinical social worker, you cannot operate.
Okay. So how many hours? So licensed clinical social worker, obviously that didn't come, that wasn't like a tag on with your degree, you know, like
Right.
you get your master's degree and then, you know, it was just like something that was built into the curriculum. I'm
Right.
assuming that you had went back and got some additional education and you test for that to have that credential. Am I correct in saying that?
It wasn't the additional education, but it was the 2 years, which equaled out to about 200 hours of supervision with
Okay, okay.
another licensed clinical social worker.
Okay.
And then at the end of that supervision, you took a test.
Okay, okay. And
Yes.
and that's what propelled you into having that license and be able to be marketable to other organizations, I'm guessing, you know, not knowing what the organizations are. Well, I'm guessing we're talking about outside of this Richmond City. We're not talking about, we're in we're in the geographical location of Richmond City, but we're not talking about the city itself as an organization. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes. So these were private agencies.
Oh,
And
okay.
actually I could go in as an eligible, LCSW eligible person, meaning I had completed my supervision hours, but I hadn't yet taken the test and passed.
Oh,
So I
okay.
could still go in and work to a certain capacity, which allowed the agencies to expand their ability to hire others and have additional clients. I just had to report to the official licensed person with what I did. So it was still, you know, a certain level of supervision that they were giving me while I was studying for the test, taking the test and everything, and becoming official.
Okay, okay.
All
Okay,
right, good.
so
And
on this
then,
journey
mhm,
of that license, now obviously, you know, you didn't stop there. Let's be real.
right.
Didn't start there. So while you was on this journey of gathering this newfound, you know, opportunity, like this new vehicle that is essentially lateral to your original, you know, social worker work, where did that take you? Where did that prepare you to next? How did you moved up into that echelon?
It actually really wasn't a complete lateral because when I moved to the other department, I was a supervisor.
Okay.
And I could do that because the certain program that they had called for a licensed clinical social worker. And they considered me a supervisor of them. So it was a little bump because I had already gotten, you know, one raise that was like a junior step. And then this one was into supervision.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I didn't stop there.
Yeah.
Obviously not. Obviously not.
So I continued, I left the city, went to a private agency. And then I've always had part-time jobs since I got my LCSW.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Parents had 5, right.
Yeah.
So I had 2 part-time jobs when I left the city and then left for another full-time job. So I've always kept my foot into the private realm, making sure that I'm honing my skills and
Right.
building connections.
Absolutely.
So when the full-time job became too stressful, I quit my full-time, but I still had my part-time jobs.
Okay. Elaborate.
So elaborate on what part?
Let it flow. Say so you know you had your full time and you still had your 2 part-time, but you quit one. That's what I'm just paraphrasing here.
I quit the full-time.
Correct. Okay.
And Shonda, tell them how many hours you had to actually work on some of these part-time jobs, as far as before you took on these extra responsibilities? Like,
About, it depends because I was doing different things for each one.
Mhm.
Up to 10.
10 hours,
Yeah.
right? And they gave her a set salary that they paid her consistently
A
every
weekly
single,
salary.
Yeah.
weekly
So
salary.
so let's just, to be clear, that's not 10 in one day, that's 10 in one week. Am I
Right.
right or
That's
wrong in that?
correct.
Yes.
Okay, copy that.
10
So
a week.
that's approximately 2 hours a day at these part-time jobs for a set salary, for a weekly salary.
Right.
I'm in the
That's,
ballpark?
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. And it was a
And
nice salary.
did it require you to go in the office?
I went in for maybe an hour or two for each one per week.
Okay.
So most of my stuff I could do at home, occasionally in the field, maybe an hour
Okay.
at someone's home completing an assessment.
Okay.
All right.
But then I could come home and write up the paperwork, at home. I didn't have to be at the office or in the field.
So let's just be 100. I think the viewers want to know, because you
Okay.
went from, working in a, let's just say an office setting, let's just call it traditional setting. And now you're no longer working in a traditional setting. So, keeping with the tone of tonight's message, from a monetary standpoint, don't give out no numbers. Hey, we keep things private around here. We don't give out no dollars and cents. But to keep, put it in a monetary sense, was it, now that you're in this new environment, this new work setting, for where you're at right now, you're literally, the signature authority on some organizations that have you 1099, because they need your credential in order for them to be legitimate, for all sense and purposes. Is there anything that you're missing, from a monetary standpoint, from going from a traditional, let's say you were working in the city, in the city, from that standpoint, to now where you're more or less, like Adrian stated in the beginning of our thread, is that you're independent contractor? Or is there anything missing from a monetary standpoint? Because the viewers want to know.
Well, what I did when I left, before I left my full-time, so, I gave them notice. So when I gave them the notice, I also contacted my 2 part-times and said, I'm leaving my full-time. Wanted to let you know I'm going to have additional hours to work with you if you have additional work for me. Oh, they were ready for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could tell, it was a phone call, but I could tell they were just thinking of all kinds of things. And one of them did say, oh my gosh, I have so many thoughts going through my head right now. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Let me enjoy
Amen.
this just a little bit. And this was in October of 2020. So we're also, into COVID at the time. So a lot of things was now online and doing a lot of telehealth stuff. So I didn't have to be in the field anymore because they allowed us to do a lot of the stuff. Especially in my position, I was allowed to do it telehealth. And we are still able to do telehealth. So now they have worked it into policy that assessments and a lot of the other things that I do can be done through telehealth on a permanent basis.
Awesome.
So they continue to have new things for me to do. So my income has grown on both jobs. And I haven't had to scratch for it or beg for it. It just comes to me.
Okay.
I could easily pick up another one if I needed to, because again, there are people that's always looking for an LCSW. But I've also been able to have a lot of open time that I didn't before because I was traveling to Chesterfield 35, 40 minutes away. That's
Yeah.
without traffic.
Yep.
I would miss a lot of things. I wasn't having all of the regular holidays off. So
Yeah.
Adrian and the girls would go to see Frozen without me. I'm not bitter about that at all.
No, not at all. Not at all.
But they would do things on the holiday while I'm working my 3 jobs, which was fine. He was very involved with them. But, I was missing out on some things.
Yes.
Wasn't as involved, wasn't as on top of things. So this has allowed me to really be involved. I don't know if they quite like that as much, but.
So you would agree, and I'm just paraphrasing here, you would agree if you could say, if you never had sought out those additional licenses in the beginning or came of knowledge of those licenses, would it be safe to say that you would still be, predominantly working in the city of Richmond in that role, in that career field?
I would still be at social services.
So would you?
I may be a supervisor by now.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, I definitely wouldn't have had the career spike that I did. I wouldn't have gotten the opportunities that I did because I wouldn't have been as marketable just having my master's degree.
Absolutely.
I needed that license in order to move forward the way that I needed to move forward. And God put all of this together.
Amen.
Because they came to me with the idea that, oh, we have someone who's going to do free supervision. What?
Right.
200 hours at $100 an hour, that I don't have to pay out to someone. And they're going to be committed for that 2 years to, supervise me. And I can do it while I'm at work. I can carve out time within my work day instead of having to work a full day, then go to somewhere else to meet someone else. I could do that all together, do it all in the same place. So it was definitely God just piecing everything together for me. And it was at the right time. I was around the right people, and some of my part-time jobs came from people that I worked with at social services who own their own businesses.
So networking came involved too. So you was able to establish some good connections through all of this.
Definitely.
Amen. Yeah. Yep. And so that's what we're trying to promote. What your story, your testimony story, but I call it a testimony because it's a true act of God, how all those things were orchestrated, not only for the betterment of you and your family and the lifestyle, so you don't have to miss some of those important events like Frozen or them going out to eat without you and stuff like that, because I know that's near and dear to your heart also.
Yes.
But it's the thing that really struck me in your story is that when you heard it, you didn't turn a deaf ear to what you've heard. You acted upon it, right, and actually stepped into that role, and pursued something laterally to a degree. But as you were going lateral, God was taking you up that escalator into another level within that same career field, and that's where Adrian and I was talking this week that some people switch their whole career fields, like they do a whole 180, like. Yeah. I've known people during COVID when we were all sitting at home that since they were already getting paid and they were sitting at home, they took that time I'm gonna get paid, but there's no work. They're just paying me just to be here. They took that time to change their whole career field. So when the world opened back up, they weren't going back to the job they didn't want to go back to. Now, understandably, we're in a different time now. People are getting out, we're doing things now. That's not the case, but it's not to say that they still couldn't do it to make a definite change in their career, whether their current career or something totally different. But your story is definitely an inspiration of those who are definitely in that career path already, and they plan on maintaining in there. But there's stepping blocks that they can pursue in order to go up in that escalation.
Yeah, and I would say that there was definitely, in the very beginning when they brought it to me, it was a little bit of hesitation because with that license comes more responsibility.
Absolutely.
And now you're getting to
That's with anything.
assessing people and diagnosing them, you know, with a mental illness. You're getting into therapy where, you know, you kind of have someone's life in your hand.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
I kind of did before because I was working with foster care. So, you know, you had kids and, you know, either reuniting them with their families or, you know, steering them towards adoption, whichever was most appropriate. So it was still that, you know, life in hand, but it was a team approach. This one was more so on me. I had to diagnose them. I have to do therapy with them. So
Okay.
it's more, you know, individual responsibility. But the opportunity was there and it was all laid out and it was effortless. And I've noticed that's what God does for me. And it's like, okay, it's going to be planned out and you're not going to have to work for it. You're just going to have to do the work once you're there.
Right.
You know,
Amen.
just walk in his way. Don't get in his way. Follow him in what he has planned for you. And I will also say, and I know Adrian's itching for me to get to this.
Go on, girl.
At this point, what I'm making on my 2 part-times is what I was making on my full-time.
Amen.
But I'm working less hours. And it almost seems like the more work they give me, the less hours I work. I don't know how that works, but it's definitely not stressful like it was before.
Yeah.
You know, I had run my course at the other place and it was no longer a place of peace for me. So I knew it was time to leave. But, you know, I thought everything kind of had to fall in place. I had to put them in place, but I didn't. He put them in place.
Yes.
And he had already put it into place even before I decided that it was time to leave. Because he was telling me it was time to leave a long time ago and I was still holding on.
Right. Right. And
he's
sometimes
like,
we do.
I have prepared a place for you already. You just need to leave and go.
It took a little nudging. You know, it took some prayer and some nudging, but yeah.
But I will also say, Adrian, it took some prayers, some nudging, but it also took, and this is the other thing that me and you talked about, it also takes for you to have the right support system around you.
Definitely.
Because, and correct me if I'm wrong, those who are on the chat, those who are in the room right now, is that when you're making a major shift in life, now work is not something like you wake up this morning, like you rolled off on the left side of the bed, you decided to roll off on the right side of the bed this morning. It's not that simple, especially if you got years behind you in a certain organization and you got years working with certain people within that organization. And to be truthfully honest with you, you know the ridiculousness and the nuances of that organization. So you kind of can know what's going to happen that day and properly manage it if you want to. But now we're talking about something different now. You know, we're talking about striking out on faith, what you were saying, and through your testimony, and doing something closely related to what you were doing, but at a different level, in a different environment, not city government, I guess, but private organization here, privately owned. And it takes a good support system. So like I was telling Adrian, we were discussing this afternoon, we discussed certain crap and the weirdest things. I was putting air in the tire and we was just happened to be talking about that subject, is that some people want to do the things that you do and step out, you know, with that faith. However, the support system around them is not necessarily there. Those of you who are on the call that are married, those of you who are single, I think everybody needs some type of support system, that little push, that little nudge, like, hey, if you fall backwards, or, you know, like a baby that's walking for the first time, they teeter-totter a little bit and they want to dip back. Some of them dip back on purpose. Others that others that they may need a push. Would you say having a solid support system like Adrian here, I'm going to say he's solid. You know, we could talk about that stuff later.
He is.
Say So that, would you say having a solid support system in your corner also assist you in this newfound journey that you embarked on?
It did, because it was him saying, you know what? I prayed about it and God put it on my heart. Just quit.
Said, put in your
And I'm
2 week
like,
notice.
yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I wasn't hesitant because that's really where I was going with it. I just, wanted to make sure that, the family was going to be okay as well.
Yeah.
But y'all already been doing the baby steps, so that
That's
was
the
already in
thing.
play.
We were already doing baby steps and we were well into it. So for us to have to cut back a little bit more or maneuver things different, we already knew how to do that,
Right.
but we actually didn't have to do that because we had worked so hard on our baby steps that we were in a position where we really didn't need that income. It was great to have, but we didn't need it. And it wasn't worth having if it meant I was going to be under all of that stress.
Right.
But definitely, if you're not as far along in your baby steps, or you don't have someone else to kind of fill in all the gaps, it can be harder to maneuver it, but it doesn't mean that it's impossible.
Oh, gotcha.
You just may have to say, okay, because not everybody has 2 part-time jobs and a full-time job. So maybe you only had the full-time. So now
you're the only one I met in life that had 2 part-times and a full-time. I'll be 100 on that.
Yeah.
Well, that came from my coworkers who were males and they were hustlers from New York. So they always had multiple jobs.
Okay.
So it was the norm. That's what I saw from them. So it was like, okay. And they brought me right on along. And I was like, all right, let's do this. Okay,
So,
one. Okay, we can do another one.
It's all about that circle. That's why we really wanted to start this community and start what we're doing, because we wanted to give people a place to go where people, encourage people, and you got people of like mind, and they're all trying to go in the same direction. Our ultimate goal is to get a handle on our finances, learn how to live off of less than you make, and ultimately become debt free. So now you are granted the freedom to be able to do things like this. And then, you can also let God move in your life and really show you what God has been trying to do all along in your lives. But I think we just have to start trusting more in Him and start stepping out in faith and stop being afraid, which is why you see let your faith be bigger than your fear everywhere. Because that's what was my biggest thing, was fear that stopped me from doing anything. The fear of the unknown. So once you release that fear and start trusting in God and then start moving, you will see where God will come in and take over these things and start doing things that you didn't even know were possible. So,
right. And I think a lot of times that fear comes from a couple of things. The way we grew up, we saw our parents on the same job forever. They weren't going to ever leave until they had to,
I would agree.
So moving to another job for another opportunity wasn't something that they were even looking for. They wanted stability, and stability meant staying on that same job.
Yeah.
So,
and so one of the things
that we okay with starting over, whether that's
starting over
with the career. Sometimes you have to start over with your baby steps because something comes up. We've heard on Dave's podcast that, everything's going well, and then the family finds out that the wife's pregnant. And it's like, uh-oh, didn't factor that in.
Nah.
So now, she's going to have time off from work, which may be less income if she doesn't have, certain things in place. Or if there are any complications during the pregnancy, other things could, come up where, you need that extra finances, and you may, the the emergency funds are there for emergencies. So sometimes we have to actually use them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which means that we use it, now we don't have it, and we have to start over again.
Put it back.
You know, so it's okay if we have to start over in this process. Start over with the baby steps, start over with our jobs, start over. Sometimes we have to start over with our families, because sometimes divorce is a reality as well. And that could hit you almost as bad as losing your job, you know, financially, because now you have to split everything and pay for two of everything because now you're no longer together. So just, you know, be okay with starting over as long as you continue the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
just don't stop.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we want to encourage people, like, if you're looking at your current career field and you want to make a change in your career field, you got to look for those changes or those opportunities or those conversations or those relationships that we were discussing. You know, Adrian, he started out selling furniture, you know, mattresses, you know what I'm saying? And he happened to look at the guys that he was working with, and from that example alone, he realized that, hey, I don't want to be in that same situation or that same predicament, and went back to school to obtain a degree. And on top of that, worked in certain career fields where he started following people of that career field to be more experienced than where he's at right now.
Like Rondell was saying, you know, we have to make that change. You know, our jobs give us opportunities. Like a lot of jobs, and most of you may have this situation too, where the job offers tuition reimbursement, or they offer for you to take classes, or, you know, or get certifications. Like I've been in the IT industry for the past 20 plus years, and during that time, I've gotten over 14 IT related certifications, and I haven't paid for any of them. All of my jobs paid for all of these. So it's very important to take advantage of some of these tuition reimbursements and these you know, certification reimbursements that your jobs offer you. Okay, you may have to give them a year of your time, you know, the way you don't have to pay that back. But in most cases, you're probably going to be there another year anyway. So you might as well take advantage of these this free money that they're giving you, because it's adding value to where you are. And I can tell you what really helped me out when it was time for them to do my annual reviews. When you sit down with them and you're doing your self-assessment and you tell them that, okay, I got my PMP certification, or I got my CISSP certification this year. That was my goal that's what I put down to be my goal for the next year. And then when you achieve that, you know, they have no choice but to give you the maximum when it's raise time versus somebody that didn't do anything. So it makes you more valuable to the company. So that way you can get your paper, you get your bag. So don't just sit back and wait and then complain about getting a 2% raise or getting a 1% raise and you ain't done nothing. What have you done to increase your value? You know, by learning these additional skills, you can do just like DeShonda did and take this into your own side hustle, and you can be a consultant. You can, you know, you can start your own thing, you know. So that's what we just want to encourage you guys to do that.
So I currently work with a young lady who makes about $200,000. I think last year she made just almost close to $300,000. And so, mind you, I've been working with her for about a year, coaching her on financial piece and coaching her in the realm of finances because she was unaware of that. And so we've gotten some things in order for herself. And so she has like 4 streams of income. Now, in any given weekend, she's down to where she can make $3,000 in a day, or make as much as 10 grand in a day on a weekend, and in a day. And it's because she's a nationally known photographer. She's published. She has a book that is actually as photographers in a museum here in Richmond. but where she was missing is to find that. So she knew how to make money, but when it came down to managing the money was a totally different thing. Like last year, she grossed close to $300,000. So in the job that she works for us, the government is paying her, $100,000+ for media graphics and photography and film and stuff like that, which is real big in the government. Then she got her LLC because she decided to start doing that commercially for some models and some I think her biggest payday is weddings. Around this time, we're having these fall weddings and stuff like that. So she can make, for like a couple of hours, she can make $3 grand. If she does it all day, it's 10 grand. If she put in the full eight hours, because she's shooting the husband, the bride, the grooms, who you name it, the dogs, if they got them in the wedding party, whatever the case may be. So she can scale up or scale down depending on what she needs at the time. And then she also has where she does video editing. She has taught her daughter how to edit video. So therefore, when her daughter wants to make some money, her daughter will edit some of the videos that she has, and she pay her daughter a salary out of her company that she has with the LLC. And so these are the things that she earned. And also she's an adjunct professor for George Mason. So coming in the, I guess it's called a winter session that's coming up right now, she's going to teach a session, which just for that is going to be $40,000+. So you imagine rolling this in here where it's her primary job, which she's such a master at it. She does it with her eyes closed in her sleep. This weekend, she needs to make some money, so she'll book a wedding or a wedding. She has a Rolodex where people have been trying to book her, but she's just been putting it off. And she'll find, okay, that one's going to pay me $8 grand this weekend. And it's within her range is from Richmond to DC. That's all that's her corridor. She won't go no farther than that. And that's how people, but she took her first passion of going to school for photography and became a published person. She compounded on her skill set to get to the point where she is right now. And to also have her daughter as one of her employees in her LLC, editing videos for other people that may need videos to be edited. So that's what we're trying to drive home tonight. Whether it be getting a certification like Adrian or whether going to lateral move, getting a licensing like DeShonda, or like myself last year, I got a PMP, which garner, $10,000+ of raises just by having this certificate, because I'm the only one in my company that's certified as a program manager. So the programs I run is actually ran by a certified program manager and not someone who just says they're a program manager. These things can capitalize or catapult you in a way where if you're trying to get from point A to point B in what they will call gazelle intensity, to either pay off the debt that you have, or to increase or substantially increase your emergency fund, or to finance your retirement fund, or finance your kids 529 or their educational fund, or get to that place where you're going to pay off your home. It's either capitalize off what you're doing right now, like in the case of DeShonda here, and get those necessary licenses to make yourself marketable, and making those relationships, i.e. those networks, establishing that network along the way, or do what Adrian did and make a whole nother career shift, a career change, where he was a salesman at one point in time, and he decided to, you know what, I don't want to be in sales my entire life, or whatever the case may be, what struck him. I'm gonna pursue this career path to be able to make a mark on my and my family's life later on in life.
Yeah. So like Rondell was saying, we make these changes up front, and you put together a plan for what you want for your life. Don't settle just because that's what you have right now. Look around, see what it is that you want out of life, and then go after it. If there's a position that you have at your current employer that you want to get involved with, then start talking to some people that work in that area and start asking them questions. That's how I got from working in the help desk and in IT to working in cybersecurity. I started talking to the folks in cybersecurity section. I started asking them questions. I said, okay, what do I need to be studying? What do I need to be reading? And then I started hanging around with those guys. I started eating lunch with them. And then all of a sudden, God opened the door for me. They had a boot camp for a certification that all of these guys were going to, and the company had paid for a certain amount of seats, and they had extra seats. So these guys told the other supervisors, hey, Adrian's interested in doing this. If y'all got extra seats, let him come sit in. I came in, sat in those seats, didn't have to pay anything, went to the boot camps. They paid for the certification. All I had to do was put in the work and study, and I passed and got these IT certifications. So this is just from me showing interest and hanging around these guys, letting them know. And then when God opened the door, I was right there to walk through it. So this is some of the things that you guys have to start thinking about. And this is going to help you on your debt-free journey. This is going to help you get that extra money to put towards your kids' college funds, to be able to max out your 401k every year, you know. And when I say max out, this means that you're able to put $20,000. I think it's going up to what this year, Rondell? $22,000? Yeah.
Oh, right now I think it's 22.5. So they like to do it in increments of like a whole number in $500. So
yeah,
it has
but
the
just
potential.
Think about that, guys. I never in my life thought I'd be able to max out my 401k. Never. And you know, once you get on this journey and God starts moving, I don't even miss that money that we're maxing out on our 401k every year. So, but this is doing something so I don't have to work like this all the time. So when I get, you know, in my late 50s and early 60s, I don't have to continue to work if I don't want to. So I work with a lot of people in their late 60s and early 70s that still have mortgages on their houses, you know, and they have to work, so they can't retire. So these are things that we're doing now so that we can make a decision to do what we want to do later. Yeah. So.
Absolutely. And so that's what we want to leave y'all with tonight, is that if you're going to make the change, you know, first you have to understand that, okay, you're going to need to be able to open your minds to something new. I think someone said that in the chat, change is good, you know, and I agree with that statement. Change is good, you know, because without change, you become stagnant. And you may have gotten to the point where you're a little bit stagnant in the position or the job that you're currently working in. I'm not saying that you don't enjoy the job, but it may not bring you that excitement that you once had for the job when you had it. And so therefore, because I'm an advocate of growing, and I tell Adrian that all the time, I get a little bit frustrated when I feel myself not growing anymore in any capacity, whether I'm not growing in God's knowledge or growing in his word or growing in what I'm doing in regards to a career. When I'm not growing, there's a level of discomfort that I get. And you may be experiencing a little bit of discomfort because you're lacking the growth that you're seeking or needing. And so therefore start looking. If you're going to say, well, I don't want to move outside the environment that I'm in, the sandbox that I'm used to playing in, which is whether it be social work or whether it be IT or whether it be logistics or program management or whatever it may be, then start looking how you can make that lateral move that'll move you up, even if you're in that same sandbox. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, I particularly like logistics. Like I was telling Adrian, I know Air Force logistics, but Marine Corps logistics, they use different business rules that I have yet to completely understand, but I understand that there are business rules that are effective and that work, and that's something that I want to learn. And that's a challenge to me. Where others may say, hey, you know what? I've been in logistics for a long time. I may want to take the IT step. Whatever step that you decided to do in life, first make the decision that, you know, I want to move in that direction. And then petition your plans to God. Give it to God.
Yeah,
you know,
give it to God.
About what you want to do, because he's going to be the one that orchestrates a man's plan or bless off on those plans. And he may not take you necessarily in the way that you would like to go, follow the yellow brick road and then it all be golden and easy. He may take you on a longer journey, a longer path, but it's for his glory and your benefit. And so be patient about that and understanding that nothing is wrong with anything worth having is worth sacrificing for. And it may be your time. And there may be time within itself. And then just when you get there, make that change. And I always like to use this phrase when I'm talking to anybody, when I pour something or mentor someone, I tell them to pay that forward. If someone poured into you, then you should pour into others. Show others how to get to that same step or make those same steps that you're making. Because it's only going to make not only you better, because now you're growing in faith and you're growing in the things that God originally wants you to do, is promote his word and promote his people within this world for his glory. But it's also changing a life that you maybe never touched before by talking to him and speaking to him this way. So that's the encouragement that we want to leave you with tonight, people.
Yeah. And one thing I want to add to that is when you guys petition God, when you pray to God, be specific about what you want. If you want to get these things and you don't want to have to pay for them, then make that part of your prayer. Ask God for favor that, this certification or this training class I want to take, that I'm not going to have to pay for this out of pocket, and watch what God does. Rondell's wife had a prime example of a course that she was trying to take, and she didn't have to pay for it. I think Rondell said that course was like $17,000, and then not less than a year later, she got put into a program where they put her in that same course and they paid for it 100%. So when you put forth the effort and you involve God in it, God will open up doors for you where it's not gonna cost you. And then I'm gonna say this in closing: if you are comfortable in where you are right now, then you are not growing. So you're not growing unless you're uncomfortable. So when we started this podcast and started doing this thing, this was the most uncomfortable thing I've ever done, was getting in front of this camera and sitting up here talking in front of these people. And God told me, whether it was one person or 1,000 people, if you go do the work, I'll take care of the rest. And that's what we're doing. So I'm moving. We're up to 45 people now. And I'm like, I remember when it was just 3 of us in the group, me, Rondell, and DeShonda. So, and now we're up to 45.
Karen.
So, and then we got
There's always Karen. Karen's always there.
Yeah. So it just shows you that God says if you move, he will take care of the rest. So I don't know where the other people are coming from. I don't know where those other 42 people came from, but God provided them just like he said he would. So, and that's what anything you do in your life, God will provide, as long as you involve him and ask him for what it is that you want. So,
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
So with that, guys, we're at our time for tonight, but we thank you guys for joining us. And
Shonda, I would like to thank you personally for your testimony and letting us pull on you tonight and explaining how God blessed you and took you from where you were into where you currently at.
Yeah.
And we pray that God continue to take you further in the things that you want to do. So thank you again for sharing your testimony.
Yeah.
Amen. Amen.
And I can already tell, based on some of the comments we got in our chat tonight, that we got some other people that are going to want to give their testimony up here as well. So, and we'll be more than happy to interview each and every one of y'all, and y'all can let people know how God moves in your lives and bless you guys. So with that being said, guys, enjoy your Monday Night Football. Let your faith be bigger than your fear, and continue to move in the things of God. So, all right.
Have a great evening, everyone. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.